Yes, Well, thank you very much. I mean, good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm George Hidalgo, club president, and I am super excited to see all of you. I mean, it's just fantastic. Isn't it great to be back? I mean, it's just a little bit of normalcy that makes it, it's just so fantastic. So my opening message today about friendships, and that's what I tell, it's hard to keep from hugging and shaking people's hands because I was so excited to see so many of you. And what a great gift we have been given to be part of a Rotary Club that means so much to the community. And what makes the club so special is just, each and every one of you that we get a chance to connect, grow, and serve together. Just truly outstanding leaders for our community. Now, we've missed each other over the past year. There's no doubt about it. Definitely have missed each and every one of you. And what a great feeling it is to be to connect in person. So be sure to take a minute even afterwards. We're going to be done at 1:05, but if you want to stay over and just chat and catch up with people, that's the right thing to do. As I was telling, I think of Ron and Jason, is that bottom line, when you go to prison, what do they do to punish you? They put you in solitary confinement, right? We as human beings are social creatures, right? We love to interact with each other. So congratulations to everyone that's here, and that's fantastic to see all of you. With that, let's go on to our opening music. But before I go to that, I want to show that I actually. Wear ties again, right? Well, I guess bow ties, right? And that'll work too. So that's fantastic. So let's start out with the opening music. Ellis Waller will play God Bless America on the Bagpipes, followed by a 1-minute thing performed by Jeff Bartell and Bob Dindor.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-wah, 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 do-wah. It don't mean a thing, all you got to do is sing. Do-wah, 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 do-wah. It makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you've got. Well, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-wah, 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 do-wah. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you've got. Well, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-wah, 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 do-wah.
So thanks to Ellis Waller, Jeff Bartel, and Bob Dindorf for that music. We also like to thank Jeff and Angela Bartel's son, Nick Bartel, for joining in this week on the saxophone. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank Neil Feuerbach. I'm not sure if, Neil, are you here? No? Okay. Who continues to volunteer to help our musicians produce these videos. So it's a great work seeing all the talent that we have within the club. So makes our meetings special, even with the pandemic that's been going on. So with that, let's go on to the next section. And bear with us because of the fact that we're trying to do this on online also, so simultaneous, right? Okay, no problem. I'll take it. Okay. It's usually an Ask George picture in a clip, and it says Ask George. But so I get asked a lot of questions about our club. And recently, a member asked, "Hey George, when are we going to meet in person, being the Dane County Elastic, their standards, in terms of, what is it, almost 54% of people already have their first vaccine. I think it's like 35%. The numbers change every day, obviously, have already gotten the both shots, right? And, the cases are going down. So there was a question about when are we going to start meeting, and then the question about, well, why are we meeting so soon? Can't we wait a couple more months, right? So both of them are great questions, and we may have people in different places. So, and I'm not talented in that area to be able to answer adequately as to what the right answer. So we do have people within the club that are extremely talented, and actually we have a retired epidemiologist, Bob Calder, who will come to the podium and answer that question. Excuse me, Bob.
Thanks very much, George. So if the question is, why are we meeting today, I'll certainly go over that. But do we have to meet in person? The answer to that, the short answer is no. We're not requiring in-person attendance, and we're not going to be requiring 50% in-person attendance, at least right now. But to respond more completely, I want to address two issues. The first issue is, why is it prudent to do what we're doing right now? That's the first question. And the second question is, what predictions can we make about the future of the pandemic? Now, whenever I hear the word or use the word prediction, I always think of Yogi Berra's advice about predictions, and many of you probably remember, he said, predictions are hard to make, especially about the future. And so keeping Yogi Berra's sage advice in mind, let me first address, why are we doing this today? Is this a safe thing to do? Specifically, what's the probability? What's the sort of upper bound on the probability that somebody in this room is infected with COVID? It's an interesting question. And many of you, I'm sure, saw last week in the paper on Thursday that we had, for the first time in 2 months, 1,000 cases of COVID reported in Wisconsin. Well, if we assume that that happens every day and that is a vast underestimate, let's assume that that's underestimated by 5-fold, which is a very pessimistic assumption now. A year ago, that would have been a not unreasonable assumption, but today, we're trying to find an upper bound on the probability that somebody's got COVID in this room, so go with that pessimistic assumption that the number of cases has been underreported 5-fold. So let's say there are 5,000 people per day in Wisconsin infected with COVID. Well, given that each person is infected for about 10 days, that means 50,000 per who are infected with COVID right now in the state of Wisconsin. Well, divide that by the 5.8 million that we have in the state, and no matter how you calculate it, it's less than 1% of people who are likely, on average, to be infected. Assuming we had 99 people in this room, which we don't quite, but let's assume we do for the sake of easy figuring, there would be less than a 1% chance then that somebody, assuming that this is a representative group of people in Wisconsin, there'd be less than a 1% chance that somebody in this room has COVID. And of course, this is anything but a representative sample of people in the state, because I'd be willing to bet more than half of us have had at least one, if not both doses of the vaccine. And when you combine that low probability with the fact that we're masked, most of the time anyway, and socially distanced, I feel very comfortable being right here, right now. So, to the second question, the second issue is what predictions can we make about the pandemic? And again, keeping Yogi Berra's advice in mind, there are really two trends or forces that really will determine what happens in the future. The one force is the infectiousness of the new COVID variants. As I'm sure most of you know, the COVID variant becoming most prominent now is the UK variant, which is more communicable than the wild type we had a year ago. So the communicable nature of the new variants is one force, and the other force is the rate at which we become vaccinated. What's the balance of these two forces? Well, again, the more infectious that the COVID variants are, the higher the herd immunity that's required to keep the epidemic from spreading more. And so how do you calculate the herd immunity percentage? Well, initially a year ago, the thought was that each person infected with COVID would transmit the disease to 3 other people. Well, in order to prevent an epidemic, you have to infect only one other person or less. So if the average person is infecting 3 people, if 2 of those 3 are immune, then you're not going to have an epidemic. So the herd immunity threshold initially was 2/3 or 67%. Now, if you take a more infectious variant, that where you're passing the virus on to, on average, 5 other people, it doesn't take, a PhD from MIT to figure out that if 4 of those other people are immune, a herd immunity percentage of 80%, you're not going to have an epidemic. And so the more infectious something is, like measles, for example, on average, every person infected with measles passes it on to 10 other people. If you don't have 9 of those other people vaccinated, you're going to have an epidemic. So the more infectious something is, the greater the herd immunity required. So that's one force that we're dealing with. And the other force, as I mentioned, is the rate at which we become vaccinated. And so the quicker we do it, the better, because we're going to probably need close to 80% herd immunity to keep this pandemic in check. So I don't know where the balance of those forces are. Maybe Jason or some others could model differential equations for that, and it'd be a little difficult since we don't know the initial conditions, as the mathematicians like to say. We don't know how many people are infected. We don't know the duration of infectiousness. There's a lot of things we don't know. So any mathematical model is going to be really just a rough guide. So we can't predict the future. I'm confident that what we're doing right now is the right thing. And to ensure that we stay as safe as possible, there are a few things that you'll see, I'm sure you saw in the newsletter. If you do plan to attend, remember to make a reservation or call the office. It's very important because we only have space here for 99 people. There are 3 seats at each table so that we can abide by the 6-foot rule. We pre-print name badges, and they're available spaced out on the table out front. Face masks are required, unless you're eating, of course. Hand sanitizer is plentiful, although that's not how COVID is mainly transmitted. Plenty of other diseases are transmitted hand to mouth, so it can't hurt. And the kitchen is not yet open, so you can bring your own food and beverage for these first few weeks. The hotel's valet parking is open, and the cost is now up to $6. And you'll need to bring exact change because they aren't taking credit cards yet. And there were other details in last Friday's newsletter, including information about food. And it's been, let's face it, in summer it's been a very challenging year. I know I'm glad to be back, and I'm sure you are too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. Janine O'Rourke is a member of our Community Projects Committee, and she has an announcement. Janine?
Hello. Last year, the River Food Pantry provided a record 3.7 million pounds of food to over 6,000 Madison households. Located Located near the airport, it is South Central Wisconsin's busiest food pantry. The pantry provides curbside grocery pickup, freshly prepared to-go meals, and mobile lunches for children and families in low-income neighborhoods. But they can't do it without volunteers, and our club has signed up for 2 shifts on May 7th and 8th to put together some of these to-go meals. This offers a volunteer option either midday Friday or on Saturday morning, depending on your schedule. So you say you haven't done this kind of work before. No problem. No previous experience needed. Not sure how to socialize after a year of quarantine and the pandemic? No problem. No one will judge you. And you've never joined a community service project before? No problem. New volunteers are welcome. See you at the River Food Pantry.
Thank you, Janine. Award presentation. So past President Renee Moe chairs our Member Recognition Committee, and she has 2 awards to present to members.
Hi, Rotary family. I can't wait to see you all in person. Each year, our Rotary Club. Our club, community, international, vocational, or youth service. Today, I'm going to introduce you to 2 Rotary Club of Madison Service Award recipients, who are all dear friends of all of us. I will start with Virginia Barteld, who is receiving our club's Vocational Service Award. Virginia has been a member of our Rotary Club since 2006, and she was previously a member and past president of the Middleton Area Sunrise Rotary Club. Virginia is president of Barteld Grove Middleton and is married to Doug Gerhardt, whom she met here in our Rotary Club. With Virginia's law background, she has been incredibly helpful to our club in her role as our club's bylaws advisor. This past year has created some extra challenges for us in handling membership voting. We are set up for in-person voting per our bylaws, so Virginia found a solution for us so we could continue our elections on schedule during this past year in the pandemic. She also helps review Rotary International's Council on Legislation decisions and helps us update our bylaws based on any new actions by those decisions by Rotary International. In addition, Virginia chairs our Madison Rotary Foundation Major Gifts Committee, and she has served on our orientation and member development committees. She has been a mentor to a Rotary Scholar, and she has served on our board of directors. Beyond our Rotary Club, Virginia has been a trainer at the district level and was an assistant district governor. She was the leader of a group study exchange that traveled to northern India, and she has participated in a Polio Plus National Immunization Day in India. With all of these activities, it's easy to see why she's being named with this year's Club Vocational Service Award. With this recognition, President George will present her with a certificate and special pin, and our club has also made a $200 gift in her name to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International. Let's congratulate Virginia on receiving this award. Our second member being recognized today is Carol Trone. Carol is receiving our club's Youth Service Award, and she has been a member of our Rotary Club for 8 years. She holds a PhD in Educational Policy Studies, and she connects resources and information with people to empower access and information success. That's also true about her success with Rotary. Carol volunteers within several of our Rotary youth-related committees to help students grow and succeed. She's been involved with our annual Rotary Ethics Symposium for high school juniors, has been a mentor to a Rotary Scholar, works with our Rotaract Advisory Group, and she chairs our Interact Advisory Committee. Carol has attended a number of Interact meetings at Madison East High School, engaging these students in leadership activities and community service. It is for her continuing dedication to volunteering with these Rotary Youth Committees and activities that we are naming her with this year's Rotary Club of Madison Youth Service Award. President George will present Carol with a special certificate and pin, and our club has also made a $200 gift in her name to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International. Our congratulations to Carol for her outstanding service to youth in our community and to our Rotary Club.
So thank you, Rainey, for presenting those 2 awards to Virginia and Carol, and congratulations to both of them. Since they're unable to attend in person, I have the certificates right here, and I would have the pin, but we'll go ahead and send that to them. In this time of COVID, we'll do those things with no problems at all. And so let's give them a great congratulations for their concern with the community and their care. Thank you. So with that, on to birthdays. So we have birthdays celebrate, a little bit of humor and wisdom that complements Rotary mission, and we also encourage members to make an age-appropriate gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation, rounded up to $100 for our Club Synergy Scholarship Fund. So, April 12th, Ned Baxter. April 12th, Mike McKay, who says, "This pandemic has magnified every existing inequality in our society. Now that we can all clearly see them, let's get to work on solving them. In the meantime, wear your mask, socially distance, and get vaccinated." April 12th, Craig Weddle. April 13th, Ellen Foley. April 14th, Donna Beesman. Donna, could you stand up, please? Thank you. Well, thanks. So, in Donna's comment is many thanks to our club's leaders and staff who have been nimble, flexible, and creative during this challenging year. Thank you. And April 14th, Rebecca Pare. Did Rebecca make it? No? Okay. So, who shares this message? "I'm glad to spend part of my birthday with all of you today. You inspire me with your many talents and dedication. I'm grateful for you, Rotarians." April 14th is also Haley Salsa Miller. April 15th, Dean Nelson. April 16th, Becky Steinhoff. Becky? Yeah. That's the birthday table. We should have bought a cake. April 17th, Gary Peterson. And I saw Susan, but I didn't see Gary. Is Gary here? Nope. Okay. Who shares, "When Black Lives Matter movement came along, I got an opportunity to evaluate city policies used to set city operations. I found the city policies on tax incremental districts were not equitable. I am now in the process of working to change them." So April 17th, Scott Strong. Okay, April 17th, Martha Sullivan. Okay, and she says, "Ben Franklin must have been a Rotarian before it was cool. He asked this question, what good will I do today?" Now that is service before self. This is a great one. So thanks to our celebrants for the contribution to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them a happy birthday. Casey Okers and her children will play and sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
So on to member news. So I know I saw it up earlier. No? Okay. So Gloria Reyes was featured in an article reflecting on her time as president of the Madison School Board as she moves to her new position with Briar Patch Youth Services. And that's 45 Madison 365. Again, I always highlight members in the news because we take for granted the people that we're with all the time, and each and every one of you play a vital role in our community. So thank you for everything that you do in here and those that aren't here today. With that, let's go on to our program. Now, we held our monthly board meeting on April 5th, and it was a hybrid meeting, which is a little bit challenging. We're still having issues with technology, and because it was the first time that we tried to do, had about 10 people in person and the other people online, and the people who were online had a hard time hearing. So audio tends to be a challenge, and we're working through that. So I encourage members to review the board minutes that we post in the member login tab of our club's website. Obviously, we work for you, so things are pretty transparent. We put down everything that we're doing is in there. Sometimes it may be too detailed when we put like 30 or 40 pages, but if you want to get involved in what's going on in the club, that's the source, okay? So we want members to see our current board members, so we ask one board member each month to introduce the speaker. And this month, Mark Moody will make the introduction. Now, Mark has been a member of our club since 2009, is former president and CEO of WIA Trust. As many of you know, he was scheduled to be our president next year, but has stepped down from that role, so he's moving to Florida later this year. Must be the tax benefits in Florida, okay? So he is serving on his first year on our board and will complete his term on June 30th. And Mark has been incredibly active behind the scenes this past year, and that as our club navigated a bunch of issues to the pandemic. So we had different task forces. First of all, we didn't have the meals, and the meals subsidized the club's activities, and there was just a lot of things that Mark led us to resolving. And he's most recently chaired our Governance Effectiveness Task Force, and we appreciate all the time and effort he put into that role. And our club will be served well in the future thanks to Mark's role in our governance planning. So Mark will now come to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, George. I have to say it's been a privilege to serve the club in the way that I have this year. And being retired, I was able to invest the time. So I'm very happy to have been able to do so. It's my privilege, my honor, and my great joy to introduce to you our speaker, who is Jason Fields. Jason is president of the Madison Region Economic Partnership. He's worked as a financial advisor, investment advisor, personal banker, credit union branch manager, and investment banking associate. Probably a good member for our finance and budget committee in the near future. He's a certified financial education instructor and certified capital raising specialist. Jason has also been a Wisconsin State Legislator for, we figure 12 years, from Milwaukee, and he's also published several books. We are pleased that he became a member of our Rotary Club just last month, and he and his wife are relocating permanently, or semi-permanently, as permanently as anything is, to the Madison area in the very near future. Jason's going to share some background about his work at the Madison Regional Economic Partnership, about overcoming complacency. Good topic. We look forward to your presentation, Jason, and we made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to thank you for speaking to us today. I also want to mention that we will have a Q&A session at the end as time allows. For anybody who's watching online, you can use the chat function to ask a question. President George will be watching the chat and can ask your question. We'll also take questions from our audience. Members should raise your hands, and if you have a question, and a microphone will be brought to you. So, Jason, thank you, and welcome to Rotary.
Thank you, Mark, Mr. President and fellow Rotarians. Where is the, okay, here. So when you all told me I was going to have to speak, I was okay with it until I think I got the email from Jane that said, Jason, on the day you speak, we're going live again, and there may only be 99 people there. And I'm thinking, only 99? No pressure. So I want to thank you all. Let me start my clock to make sure I don't go over. The theme today is we must not accept complacency. And so let me tell you all where that comes from and where that hails from. And I'm going to combine a little bit about me personally so you know me. And then as we're all going to be together and members, you need to know me and I need to know you. I am chasing one moment in my life. Everything that I do is geared towards this one moment. That moment being when I die and I'm gone and I stand before God after it's all said and done. He asks me, Jason, did you do what I asked you to do? And my answer is a resounding yes. That for me is the moment I'm chasing. Because at that point, as I'm a firm believer that we're all God's children, that it means I gave my all to you all. I gave my all to the world. I gave my all to everybody who God saw fit to put me in or put me next to. And in that theory, when I got this job, I talked to a lot of leaders from the Madison and, the region, our 8-county region. And one theme kept coming up, and Ron touched on it. I think Teresa touched on it. Several of you all touched on it, is that we do a lot of good things here, but we need to be cautious that we don't get to a point where we figured out that we've arrived. There are a lot of good things going on, but we need to make sure that it doesn't get us to a point where we relax. Make sure this is, So in MadREP, and I'll give you our description, you can read that, but MadREP, we are a holistic economic development agency. And we try to, and this is my definition for you all, where economic development is no longer just business attraction, business retention, and new business development. Now, economic development encompasses workforce development. It encompasses community development. It encompasses, like everything, how are we dealing with the people? It's not just brick and mortar anymore. Now there has to be some kind of component about how are we empowering people, whether they're business owners or whether they want to be business owners, whether they're residents, whether they're moving to this location. That all encompasses economic development. And one thing that our chairwoman, Julie Olick, said, I was having a discussion with Julie, and Julie said, being fine is completely different from being great. And that stuck with me. Because a lot of us are fine. But, and I want to make sure I distinguish between the two. It's okay to go and search for greatness, not perfection, but greatness and excellence. It's okay if we do that. And at MadREP, and I'll talk about some of the things where I believe we can do that. That's the mission for me, personally and professionally. So in our region, your region, we're fine. We do a lot of good things. We do a lot of great things. Number one in tech talent inflows, number one in promising metro goals for tech, top 10 best cities for young entrepreneurs. At one point, there was a survey or study that said Madison Region is best for single senior citizens, to which I called my grandmother and said, hey, maybe you want to come to Madison because I'm in the market for a grandfather. And I see a few of you here. Talk to me after we're done. Maybe there's some things we can hook up or something. But Madison, we do a lot of good things. I was talking to my wife, Latasha, that's my everything, you all. That is, I realized how dumb I am after I got married. I realized how smart I'm not after I met my wife. My wife is the first African-American president for the Wisconsin State Reading Association. She's working on her PhD, so we're God-fearing people. And so I'm talking to her, and I'm excited about this position. We prayed about this position. I said, Tasha, baby, I really want this position. I said, Madison is great. And you all, I felt like Michael Jordan joining the Bulls or Larry Bird joining the Boston Celtics. So from a kid from me, like Milwaukee, coming to Madison, this was it. It's big time. This is where people come and get things done. When you look at the rates, when you look at the studies, the surveys, this is the place to be. Tasha, this is a good place. Baby, Madison is a great place. And my wife said, yeah, but for who? And I heard her, but I sort of shrugged it off a little bit. For who? Who is it great for? From 2015 to 2020, jobs increased by 5.2%. Madison Region from 598,000 to 629. Skipping ahead, the rate 6.2%. Second paragraph, Wisconsin seniors tend to have relatively low incomes. For who is it great for? Next paragraph, the Madison region's non-white population makes up 15.75% of the total population compared to 38.9%. Last paragraph, Wisconsin was ranked the worst state for racial equality in employment and wealth. For who is it great for? You'll hear me use this title, and it came from Jim Collins, I believe, who wrote the book, Good is the Enemy of Being Great, and it goes with our theme. In Dane County, only 12% for Black households own homes. Skipping down, you can read all this. I don't want to read all of it. While nearly 48% of white households earn above the county median family income, only 16% 16.4% of African Americans, 17.3% of Hispanics do. I'll leave this up here while I'll tell you a quick story. On the way up here, my wife and I, we're looking for places to stay. Your housing market is insane here. It is, this is, I've never seen anything like this. We picked out 6 to 8 houses, and within a week, they're gone. So on one hand, that's great. But for people like me and my wife, boy, is that a pain. But we're on our way here. We'll be settled in on June 1st, you all. In Hawks Landing, because we still have to deal with some things in Milwaukee, but we want to get settled. And so we are driving up here because, again, I'm the new Kobe Bryant. I'm the bright new shining object. I'm having a ball. The love that you all have given me is awesome. Ron called and recruited me right away, Julie Arlick, Wesley Sparkman, and it was a ball. I'm on cloud 9. I'm meeting potential grandfathers here. I'm meeting people with wisdom and who are giving me all the insides and out about who's really doing what and who to be careful of. I'm eating this stuff up. This is great. And so we're driving on our way here, and my wife makes a phone call to this place we wanted to go visit. Hey, my name is Latasha Fields. My husband and I are looking to move. He has a new job, and we want to come and look at the place. This is a pause. Well, you know there's a pandemic, so we're not showing anybody anything. Okay, but you have it advertised to call and come and see. Okay. Well, what can we do? What's next? What would be the process? Well, we have to do a background check. They did that for the job, so I think we're clear on that. And we have to run credit checks. Yeah. Now, at this point, my wife and I are looking at one another, and listen, we all know what it is, right? I mean, let's just be clear and candid about it. And let me be totally honest with you all, I'm hurt by that. I'm hurt. I'm hurt, man. Because my cloud 9, I'm coming from the most segregated racist place in the country, in Milwaukee. I'm coming from these places, and my cloud 9 coming here. Remember, I'm feeling good. This is great. This is the new place to be. And this is not an indictment on the region or people. But what it does show, and what it brought me back to, was for who? Because we have to be adamant as a community that ignorant people like that, regardless of who they are, what race, culture, creed, whatever, that is not acceptable. That is never acceptable. Because in my mind, what I'm thinking is, when I got here, let me tell you the first thing I did when I got here. I make investments in other people's companies. I'm sort of a small-time angel investor, not like my potential grandfathers here in the room. But I have friends who own life science company, telehealth companies, doctors, African-American monk. And my thing, the first call when I got here was, hey, would you come and start your business here? We have a well-known university. We have bikes. We have lakes. We have diversity. We're great. But now I have to manage my emotion because that lady tainted my cloud 9. She tainted something that was special to me and my wife. And I'm not necessarily mad at her. I'm mad at the fact that now I got to emotionally deal with that. And I have to consider, do I call all those other well-established professional people in my network and say, hey, this is a great place to be? Not that I shouldn't, but the fact that I even have to think about that now is the problem. So with that said, Martin Luther King Jr. said, a threat to justice anywhere. I want to make sure I get the quote right. I think you all know what I'm trying to say. Let me get over the drama. But the point is this. You all, we have to be adamant about the things that we want to do and the people we want in our community, regardless of what they look like, regardless of where they come from. This is us. This is us. We have to send a message that those things will not be tolerated. Because when you look at young people, anybody for that nature, young African-American professionals, let me be honest and candid with you. If I have to try to sell them that this is a great place to be, and in the back of their minds is, well, not for who? That's a problem, because what it means is that we're not being the best. We're not being competitive. And the world is much smaller now. It's not just about Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay. No, it's Wisconsin versus other states. It is the U.S. versus China. And ladies and gentlemen, we need all the talent, all the people who are willing to come and contribute. We need all the people who are willing to come and learn from people who've been there. We cannot leave any stone unturned. So if that's the case, we cannot tolerate that kind of behavior. So what are we doing about it? One of the first things I wanted to do was look at broadband. It's a hot topic. In the legislature, I was the leading Democrat who created the 5G legislation, and now this is personal for me. And let me say this, hopefully I'm not offending anybody in the telecom industry, but I will say this as a recovering politician. Sometimes you learn better. What was told was that broadband would be for everybody, that everybody would get it. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. And so at MadREP, what we did was create a partnership with a third party where we can go in and launch broadband in areas that are underserved and, quite honestly, in our rural areas. Coming from the city and coming from Milwaukee to Madison, and I'll say this, it's always funny to me because the story writes itself. Here's a young Black guy really adamant in advocating for rural Wisconsin. I think that's a beautiful story. I love saying that to people just so I can see their facial expression. Because it's important, because I'm aware that sometimes our rural brothers and sisters get left out of the discussion. And if we want to be competitive, this is, we're all in the same boat. This is not one or the other. So 13% of Wisconsin residents do not have access to minimum broadband. In a time of a pandemic, how is that going to help our education? How is that going to help students get educated if they can't even get the tools necessary or get online? We're leaving money on the table because we're not preparing everybody to be successful. We're not empowering everybody. The Department of Public Instruction survey found racial disparities in internet access. Number 3, experts agree that significant disparities to broadband access exist between rural and urban communities. And so what we've done at MadREP is to partner and come up with a program initiative where small municipalities can come, we can help them get broadband access. And because we're in a budget crunch kind of time constraints, system, the municipality would not have to pay any upfront costs. Our partner would come in, manage the infrastructure, and then turn it into a revenue stream for that municipality. And we've talked with a lot of individuals from around our 8-county region, myself, Craig, Jean, Jana, Jessica, Paul Jaden, who was in our office today, and it was great to catch up with him. We talked with a lot of people that said this is something they would love to see. Something where it's easier on the municipality's finances. They can get access to broadband. And right now we're at a point where we're looking to organize a meeting, a convening of a session where, because all these dollars are coming down, we have to be wise about how we use them. And there are going to have to be some executive decisions made. Do you want broadband or do you want to pair roads? If you want broadband, now you're talking about attracting businesses. If you want broadband, now you're talking about trying to limit the exodus that's going from your region. So those are the things that we're going to do in broadband. Our action plan: build and own and operate new fiber networks. Not MadREP per se, but we're going to help the municipalities do that. And I'm just going to pick out a few of these. Install equipment and antenna systems on existing utility poles. Provide IP Ethernet connections. Place new collocation cable poles within the public and utility rights of way. Not to get too technical, but here's where the municipality can now begin to charge all the major carriers because they're leasing out the space. So now broadband is acceptable, and now they have broadband in those rural areas, as well as in areas where there are low or underserved community members. Our access to capital plan. As a former stockbroker and a financial advisor, you all, I can tell you I've heard a lot of things about what's wrong with the community, what's wrong with certain members. One of the issues that we really don't talk about a lot of times is access to capital. And while, yeah, it's prevalent in African American communities, this applies to everybody. This applies to people in rural America as well. Access to capital. And so what we're doing at MadREP is creating a revolving loan fund. We already have committed $325,000. We're also looking to launch a housing fund where we can discuss senior housing, not just workforce housing, because we're looking for ways to attract and keep talent in these areas. Now, these are just things we'd have to do. Those have to be, we'd have to get some help because transportation is an issue as well. But if you can start with access to capital to protect entrepreneurs, to keep some of your business owners in play, now we're talking about rebuilding. Now we're talking about doing things that will keep the community or that area going well. So we're looking for $2 million to carve out specifically for rural communities because they've struggled. And my whole agenda, you all, when I came here was Madison is great. I love Madison. I have great friends from Reuben Hopkins to Zach to Jason Ilstrup. All these people, great. Love them to death. Those individuals have Madison sewn up, and I think they're doing a great job. Where people like me and MadREP can come in is how can we add to the supply chain and not duplicate efforts? How can we plug into the gap and begin to help people? And when you look at that rural area, there tends to be a gap there, and that's where we in MadREP, we're going to stake our claim. The Milwaukee corridor, and Ron, I think you wanted me to touch on this. And I wanted to touch on it as well. There is this thing here, and I've seen it in the legislature, you all, and maybe you all can help me at some point. I'm a firm believer that we're all children of God. And if that is the case, it is not a urban versus rural. It is not a black versus white. It is not a old versus young. It is not a Milwaukee versus Madison. It is an us thing. It is a how do we all get along to be successful. Remember the goal that I'm chasing. Jason, did you do what I asked you to do? Help empower other people. God didn't give me the order and say, Jason, did you just help out black people? He didn't say that to me. He didn't say, Jason, would you just help out people from Milwaukee or Madison? No, Jason, will you help out people? Period. And if that's the case, then I'm a former politician, and I'm going to be very candid with y'all. The moment you get elected officials and politicians involved in something, it gets so convoluted. It gets taken somewhere. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be what kind of Sunday should we serve at the Rotary meeting, and that will literally take 3 hours because somebody had to give us the historical perspective on strawberry flavored ice cream. And so what we need to do is let's get rid of those divisive things. And let's adapt a mentality where this is all of us. And so in researching this Milwaukee, where how can we combine some of our efforts and talents, not just with Milwaukee and Madison, but with that corridor in I-94 between Milwaukee and Madison. We have great talent there. These were some of the things that I read. Where I didn't hear the skepticism was from the young entrepreneurs and the professionals who travel back and forth between Madison and Milwaukee. If anything, they were mystified by the cluelessness of politicians. Now, being a former recovering politician, I can understand. I've seen that cluelessness. Young people are saying, what's the big deal? We want to be successful, whether that's in Milwaukee, Madison, or anywhere in between. We have talent. What's the problem? And so one of the things that we're looking to do is establish a relationship with Milwaukee MKE Tech and look at how we can attract remote workers, how we can keep them in our areas. Let me go back. One of the things that we need to face, and I'll read this here, Madison is gaining talent from areas like Milwaukee, Chicago, and other Midwest metros. The problem with that is, although we're gaining talent, we're losing them. We're losing them to places like Minnesota. While even with all the unrest there, what it says is that even though we're attracting talent, they're coming here and either they're picking up and moving out, or we have home talent that we're growing here and they're saying to themselves, there's greener grass somewhere else. This can't continue. And remember, I was just telling you all that economic development now entails workforce development, community development. We have to send a message that this is a place to be. And again, I think we're doing that. I think we're good at it. But we can't get complacent to where we don't understand that, yes, we are still losing talent. So we still have a ways to go. International. So one of the initiatives for me is I'm a member of the Center for the World Business Angel Investment Forum, and it is a global international organization and with the intent to discuss how to attract business, foreign and direct capital and investment to your area. We need to be braggadocious about our region. The problem with that is we're Midwestern, you all. So we don't do a good job bragging because it's not in our makeup. It's not something we do. This is as flashy as we get here in the Midwest. Nothing wrong with that. But we have to brag about the assets that we have. Top-notch university systems, great place to raise a family, great place for seniors. I still haven't forgot potential grandfathers. I'm still looking at you. Great place for work, environment, tech, entrepreneurship, great place. So we have to brag about that. And one of the things we have to do is, again, invest and attend some of these international conferences and look to see how we can, garner talent either from some of these locations, how we can attract investment, particularly with places like Africa. We have the investment summit coming up, the Select USA Investment Summit with WIDA, the World Business Angel Investment Forum. I got a call from a good friend of mine in DC, and he asked if MadREP would be willing to host some international consulates. All these things are the beginning of a discussion of how we can attract major businesses, talent, and how we can keep people from leaving. And so all this is a combination of the things that we need to do. But again, it rests on this one idea. What are we chasing? What are we chasing? If I went around the room and asked all of you, what's the theme here? What's the mission of our region? You get 75 different answers. We have to focus that. We have to bring that to where we're all on one accord. And we have to get rid of this us versus them, Dane County versus everybody else. We have to get rid of that because that's not competitive. We cannot focus on the divisiveness. And with that, that ends my presentation. I think I'm within the time, President.
Yep, we'll ask a question. Okay, you have a question, Ron, we'll go ahead and use my microphone. You have time for
Thank you, Jason. Very enthusiastic. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
I want to know why it is that Wisconsin is different than, let's say, Minnesota in this particular issue.
Yeah.
Got an answer for that?
I have several. One, it starts with your people. Everything starts with your people. But in this case, let me say this. It may start with sometimes your elected officials. Because when I went to Minnesota, I was driving around with the Speaker of the House, African-American gentleman in Minnesota, and he pointed out to me all the cranes they had up in, meaning all the economic development. They were big on economic development. They took it seriously. Here's where we make a lot of times we make mistakes as community members, as leaders, as elected officials. We sacrifice progress for perfection. Meaning we almost want it done 100% right than to even have it done at all. And so because of that, we stifle growth and we get caught up in meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. I told my team I hate task force. No offense to anybody on the task force, but I'm jaded by task force, and here's why. When they're political task force, they typically start out with everybody at the table singing Kumbaya. But then about a month into it, self-preservation kicks in. And the agendas and angles start to play. And now you've lost track of what the main goal was. And so when we do task force and groups, it has to be people who really, at the end of the day, they don't care about who's in charge. They don't care about who gets credit. They only want to see it done. And that's my mission. I don't care who gets the credit. Let's just get it done. And that, I believe, is a culture mindset thing which stifles us. And that's even one of the differences between Madison and Milwaukee. We start with these kinds of discussions and with everybody being on the same page, admitting we have to change that. And when there are opportunities for growth, not being afraid to speak up and say, you know, I like where we're going, but we need to get this done. Let's not play games. So it really starts with, it's like a virus. One of us spreads that. If we all have that mentality here, this is a great organization with a number of people, very powerful, influential organization. It means sometimes we have to call our colleagues and other people and say, look, is this real? Because if it's not real, don't waste our time.
Forgot, we can't hold the mic. Thank you, Jason, for being here. I am, too, a firm believer that we're all God's children, so the Lord bless and keep you. So, but my question is this specifically. So I've chaired the city's Digital Technology Commission for about 4 years now. And so the city of Madison just passed a resolution about digital inclusion
Yes.
that is to expand into broadband.
Yes.
And so after about 4 years and $500,000 spent of Madison tax dollars money, we still don't have a digital inclusion for our city, our region, and now broadband. So I wanted to know if MadREP is aware of that, and then what possibly you could be doing to assist with this new commission or task force, actually, I think is what it's called, that is coming.
So I've talked with the mayor and the mayors and the people, and we're talking and we're showing them this. And I let everybody know up the gate. I'm worn out from political task force, you all, because of that very reason. I have a huge, and I'm not trying to be offensive, and please, if my board members are watching this, please don't hold this against me, but it has to be said. I am not a fan of us always getting together to talk about a problem that we've all know is a problem. And we talk about it for 4 years, and then nothing happens. And 9 times out of 10, that's what you end up with. So I prefer, and I send the message, I'm about the work. Let's get it done. Personally, it should take no more than 4 meetings to get something done. No more. If after 4 meetings, you all are not on the same accord, somebody's lying or somebody doesn't know what they're doing. You know, and so that's just an internal thing. But if we all agree, then we need to limit the political games and political rhetoric, because there are people who need us to be moving with a sense of urgency. There are people who are counting on us. And so for me, I think we have to keep that at the forefront.
Yeah, Jason Fields, I'm Juan Lopez. I sent you a message when you got selected. Very happy and proud that you got selected, and I followed you during your years in the state legislature.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I followed you. You were very emotional about Hawks Landing.
Yeah.
Now, that's Hawks Landing where it's a well-to-do community, but those kinds of housing issues continue to exist for poor people or people of color in Madison, Wisconsin. I know you said we're God's children, but we're not always treated like God's children.
I agree.
That's the difference. Now, I've been here 45 years, and I'm listening to you very, very happily, but how do we tap into the talent of people of color in Madison, Racine, Kenosha,
Milwaukee and Green Bay, not just leaving, but keeping them here when they graduate from technical colleges or UW system or private schools to be part of that economic viability and thrive. You know, George owns his own business.
Yes.
That's what we need to do with people of color so that we can then immerse them into the economic development. Thank you.
That's a great question, and I'll answer that with this. One, it starts with the mindset that that's something we need to do. And I'm not just talking about the talk, right? I mean, people are actually committed to that. What typically happens is you have well-intending people coming and wanting to help, and the intention is good. But there's a saying in the business world that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you send the impression that this is just another issue to solve something, this is just another thing to, put on a resume or brag about how you got involved, how you helped, and you don't do that by, just coming in, you have to give people ownership in their empowerment. And that means you have to take the time out, whether it's uncomfortable or not, to meet people where they are. You have to be willing to meet people where they are. You have to be in a position to let people know, I'm going to be here helping you. This is not a handout. This is a collaboration. This is an effort, but I need you to be involved, which means if you come into those areas, those neighborhoods, don't come in thinking you have the problem solved. Get buy-in from that community. Get buy-in from those leaders in that area. Help them come up with the solution. And typically what happens is we take the reverse approach. We come into an area, we say this is good. We think people who've never seen us before are all of a sudden supposed to just rock with us and then wonder why they don't trust us. Because typically what happens is if something doesn't work out in a timely fashion, those very same people who came into that community leave. And once you left, think about that from a trust factor. What you've just shown me is that you weren't really there for me because you didn't stick it out with me. And so those are some of the things we have to do, as well as examples. And I had a good friend of mine, Chris Abley. Chris and I were talking a couple of days ago, and he said, Jason, I think about calling on African-American business owners, entrepreneurs, because I don't want them to think that I'm trying to take too much of their time. To which I told Chris, I said, Chris, that's exactly what they should be doing. Whether I like it or not, as an African-American, I need to make sure other kids see me. Not that I think I'm this or that, but they need to see the potential. They need to see, hey, here's a guy who went through some of the same things I did, became a legislator, an author, a radio show, now is the president and CEO. If he can do it, I can do it. So we have to have examples who are willing to be seen, not in a braggadocious kind of, but that's our mission. You need to see it. Not, and no offense to athletes or anybody like that, but I always tell my kids in financial literacy classes that I teach, I prefer you be the owner of the team than the player.
Thank you. I'll tell you, Jason, that was an outstanding presentation, so thank you very much. And with that, I want to thank everyone who attended today's meeting, and I look forward to seeing you at Park Hotel next week. Spend some time socializing if you can. We are adjourned